Hello and welcome back to the Girl Fit Method podcast. Okay, first of all, I have to apologize for my voice. I do sound a little bit like a man. I lost my voice completely on the weekend. So I had my friend's birthday, and in Adelaide, where I live, there is this bar called Crybaby, and it's like an old rock and roll. I should say it plays old music, like old rock and roll music, and you can like dance on the booths there. It is such a vibe and it is so much fun. Anyway, I was singing my little heart out to the majority of the songs. And I woke up the next morning and my voice had completely gone. So you're gonna have to bear with me here. But it was well worth it. It was so much fun. And if you are watching on YouTube, you guys, I am filming in my bedroom. I was like, do you know what? I actually can't be bothered setting up my recording. I've kind of got like a home recording studio that I use. And I was like, no, I want to be more comfy. I'm going to sit on my bed. I've opened the blinds. There is a beautiful big tree right outside my window. It has been the most glorious weather here in Adelaide. And I thought, let's change things up a little. So here I am in my bedroom. Welcome. Welcome to you all. And today's podcast episode, I'm going to do a Q&A. So I put a question and answer box up on my Instagram. And I'm going to answer some of your most asked questions, which I'm super excited to do. And before I get stuck into things, I do just want to say a massive thank you for all of the support for the podcast. I've been getting heaps of DMs lately, which honestly warm my heart so much. And I want to encourage all of you, if there's any specific topics you want me to cover, please, please, please send me a DM and let me know, because I want to be able to provide you guys with the most amount of value I possibly can. And the best way for me to do that is to know exactly what you want to hear from me. So please feel free to do that. And also, when I get messages to say that, the podcast has really helped you, it encourages me and probably helps me more than you would know. And I always love to hear from you guys. You guys feel like family to me. And sometimes I just sit here and I talk into a microphone and I have no idea if it's resonating with anyone. So to hear that it is, honestly just warms my heart so, so much. All right. That is enough yapping from me. Let's get stuck into this Q&A. All right. Question number 1. How do you go from calorie counting, and then how do you go to maintaining your weight or transitioning over to intuitive eating? Now, calorie counting is such a wonderful tool for the majority of people and really does help with giving you the education and knowledge around what is in certain foods and what to eat in order to achieve your goal. However, I'm a big believer that calorie counting should only take up a small portion of your life. You should not be logging everything you eat into an app forever, because all that will eventually do is get tedious, obviously. Who wants to be doing that forever? But also, what you want to think about is you don't want to just see food as a calorie amount. Ultimately, your end goal should be to build a really healthy relationship with food, where food isn't a number, right? So you're able to have that education and knowledge to know what to choose when it comes to the foods that you're consuming. Now, the the process of transitioning over to intuitive eating, in my opinion, is best done with a coach. And the reason for that is because if you've come from feeling the need to have to calorie count a lot, and now you're going, do you know what, this is not really that healthy for me, and I want to transition away from that, it can be a pretty scary process. And in some cases, you can revert back to old habits because you feel like you're losing a sense of control. And this is a really, really common thing that I experience with our clients. Okay, so in saying all of that, I'm going to give you some tips now on how to transition over into intuitive eating. The first thing would be to slowly do it. So don't go from counting every calorie to completely getting rid of calorie counting, and now you're just going off, I don't know, how you're feeling in your hunger cues. That's kind of a process that you need to learn. And a really great way to step away from that is to, for one meal, stop calorie counting. So 1 meal a week, just go with what you feel like consuming for that meal and don't feel the need to have to calorie count. Another way to think about things is to move away from calorie counting is to break things down into making a really well-balanced meal. Now, the plate approach is a really great way where you've got your plate. You want to have a quarter of your plate full of a protein source, the next quarter of your plate You want to have filled with a carbohydrate source. You always want to have fats. Usually, fats will come within that protein source or carbohydrate source, but you can always cook with things like olive oil. But usually, that's like a thumb portion, right? So, the size of your thumb. And then you want to have half of your plate filled with vegetables. And then that really creates a balanced meal where you've got all of those macronutrients and micronutrients. And if you follow that structure for each main meal, you're laughing. Now, if you've spent at least 6 months calorie counting, you know exactly roughly what a high protein snacks. Add in 2 high protein snacks within the day. It is so easy to hit your protein target if you just ensure that all the meals that you're having have a good source of protein as well as those snacks. Break things down, make it really simple, follow that plate structure. Now, in saying that, that's really easy for me to say. It really depends on the person because if you've got a bit of a I guess a history with disordered eating, then the calorie counting element is not that you don't have that knowledge and transitioning over to intuitive eating. It's actually more so that you're fearful of letting go of control, where calorie counting is giving you this false sense of control around what you're consuming and maybe maintaining your weight or losing weight. And then if you stop doing that, then, oh my gosh, how do you actually know how many calories you're eating? And is that going to cause weight gain? And this is where it's probably best to be done with a coach so that they are able to really guide you through that and help you with those anxieties and fears that will arise. But I definitely encourage you guys, if you have been spending, a decent amount of time calorie counting, you should now be looking about, okay, how can I move away from that and how can I go for a more intuitive eating approach? Okay, question number 2. I've gotten that question so many times, one that I just answered. How to lose or maintain weight without tracking calories? Great question. Well, this is all going to start with exactly what you're eating. So here's what you're going to do. You are going to write down absolutely everything you eat for 1 week. I want you to have it in a food diary. It could be in a journal, and I want you to track all of that. In saying that, if you are wanting to lose weight, so if weight loss is your goal or fat loss is your goal, then what you're going to need to do is either swap out some of the elements in those meals or cut down the amount that you're eating or reduce the portion sizes. So you need to be consuming less calories. Now, a really easy way to shave off calories without kind of feeling it that much is replacing a carbohydrate source in some of your meals for non-starchy vegetables. So what this is going to look like is going from having, say, a cup of rice in a meal. If you were to replace that with cauliflower rice, you're essentially saving yourself 200 calories without feeling like you're eating less, right? So there's still a lot of volume there in that food, and you're able to feel satiated, feel full, yet you're saving yourself 200 calories. The next thing to think about is when you're going through your food diary, what are leaner cuts of meat in particular that you can choose? So swapping from things like chicken drumsticks or wings or thigh to chicken breast. Really easy way to shave off calories. Going from a normal ground beef or minced meat to a 5% or 3% fat, right? Where it's a much leaner cut of meat, really easy way of shaving off those calories. So you want to be really smart about the choices that you're making, and that doesn't necessarily require you to count calories. Now, the next thing to do is to just follow a really simple method of making sure that you've got, I talked about the plate method earlier, but you can follow the hand method when it comes to food. So you want to have a palm size amount of protein, a cup size amount of carbohydrates, and hold on, it's a palm, a cup. No, it is a palm amount of protein, a fistful amount of carbohydrates, a cupful of non-starchy vegetables, and a thumb amount of fats. Now, a really easy way to once again shave off calories there is to replace that fist amount of carbohydrates with non-starchy vegetables. So ensuring you know what you're eating, you're still going to need to be aware of the food that you're consuming, but that's not going to require you to have to track absolutely everything in an app. It's about being mindful about your choices and then also making sure you're aware that the choices that you're making when you are creating these meals are leading you towards your goal. But none of us need to be calorie counting for the rest of our lives, and it's absolutely not necessary to lose weight as long as you have that education and you understand how to build a meal and how to really essentially nourish yourself. All right. Does saving calories for the evening also affect hormones? because you are not getting enough nutrition throughout the day? This is a really great question. Yes. So, in a few ways. First of all, when you wake up in the morning, your cortisol levels are at their highest. Now, for females, there's a lot of talk about intermittent fasting and the benefits that does have. And it definitely does have benefits. But I would say for the majority of active young women, it can be detrimental hormonally. Now, when you are fasting for a prolonged period of time, when you wake up, you're going to have your cortisol levels elevated. And another thing that I see that girls do is that they will try to push their calories to the evening, so later in the day, and then they will try and suppress their appetite with caffeine. So what's happening is they're waking up in the morning, they are having caffeine straight away, which then does no favors for your cortisol levels first thing in the morning. And that can absolutely wreak havoc on your hormonal health. The other thing to think about as well is your hunger hormones, which are ghrelin and leptin. Ghrelin being your hunger hormone that's released to say, hey, I'm hungry. And then also leptin is released to say, hey, I'm satiated. Now, what can happen is those your body will definitely adjust and learn your eating patterns. So you'll probably find if you haven't eaten in the morning for a really long period of time, you just won't feel hungry in the morning. But what you will find is that you're feeling hungry towards the evening, which is when your body's going to release ghrelin because it's going, hey, I'm ready to eat food. Now, the issue with this is that it's too it's it's kind of connected psychologically as well with girls. So they will allow themselves and they'll tell themselves, I need to wait until I'm allowed to eat at this time. And then what's happening is that in conjunction with your ghrelin levels, right? So your body releasing ghrelin, you're feeling hungry. And then you're in this mindset where, oh, I'm allowed to eat now. And this is why we see girls overeating and binge eating. Where if you were just to space your meals evenly throughout the day, you would have sustained energy throughout the day. You're going to be burning more calories throughout the day. You're not going to be likely to binge and overeat. And your blood sugar levels as well, your energy levels are going to be fairly stable. Overall, it's not really best for the majority of women in particular. And I find that the main reasons girls tend to save their calories for the evening is more so they're trying to save those so they don't overeat, right? When in fact, the fact that they're in that mindset of having to save calories for the evening is leading them to actually overeat and binge. Okay, what is my go-to breakfast? Do you know what? My go-to breakfast is actually the same as my lunches, which is a meal. Now, what I'm loving at the moment for anyone that is in Australia, I have kangaroo mint. So I know in America you guys call it ground, you would say ground beef, but I would call it ground kangaroo. And I love that. And I have, I can't even say this word, Worcestershire sauce, some mustard. I put herbs in there. I saute that. And then I will roast up sweet potato, roasted pumpkin, roast vegetables. And that's essentially I'll cook that with olive oil and that's my meal. And that's actually what I have for breakfast. What I have found is that when girls have a lot of sweet, this is not just going for girls, this is going for anyone across the board. And I see it in the fitness industry so much, people making these fancy oats that are really filled with a lot of artificial sweeteners and a lot of like chocolate. And it's almost like this decadent breakfast. All that I find is that for me personally led to a crash in the afternoons and it actually didn't keep me satiated for long. I find that when I have a savory meal, an actually really well balanced meal that is filled with whole foods, I feel fuller for longer. And also my cognitive ability, my ability to stay focused and not have brain fog is so much better. But when I was having I used to have overnight wheat bix and I would have protein powder in there. I would have syrups, sugar-free syrups. It would almost make me want to crave sweet foods throughout the day. And also I would definitely find that I would just have this energy crash at 3 p.m. and I would crave something sugary. So personally, for me, I have a main meal for my breakfast and that works really, really well. Next question. I am building my meals around protein, but still can't hit my protein target. What are some tips? Okay, good one. So the easiest way to increase your protein intake is to actually increase the portion sizes of the protein that you have within your main meal. So instead of having 100 grams of chicken breast, have 150 grams. And you're going to get yourself an additional 15 to 20 grams of protein so easily. That would be my first piece of advice. The next thing to think about is to incorporate high protein snacks. Now, having 3 meals a day with 100 grams of chicken breast is not going to probably, for the majority of you, get you to hit your protein goals. So you're going to need to be intentional about including high protein snacks within your diet. Things like cottage cheese. If you were to have cottage cheese on rice cakes with tuna, you're going to get a good hit of protein within that. This is why also protein shakes can be so helpful. We don't need protein powders, but they are very, very handy when it comes and convenient when it comes to increasing your protein intake. Things like jerky as well is a really great option. Another really good hack that I have is I'll have Greek yogurt and then I will mix in half a scoop of protein powder. Now, in that small snack, I'm getting about 150 calories and I'm hitting at least 25 grams of protein, which is absolutely awesome. So if you think about, if you can get 30 grams of protein in each main meal, that's going to give you 90. And then if you're going to have two snacks with at least easily can get 15 grams of protein within both of those snacks, you could with the ones that I've just suggested, then you're hitting that quite easily. Planning ahead of time with your meals and your snacks is going to be really pivotal when it comes to you being able to hit your protein. It's just too hard if you're just trying to wing it and throw some food together and hope for the best. Plan ahead of time, pre-log your meals. And if you don't want to count your calories, that's completely fine. Then write down what you're going to have for the week. What are you going to have for tomorrow for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? What are your snacks so that you can ensure that you are hitting your protein intake? Now, if you head to my Instagram, I have a free ebook there that will help you and give you suggestions on how to put a meal together. But it also has like a whole table of protein suggestions and ideas. So go download. I think you just need to put your email in and then it'll send it to your email address. And that's a really great free resource that I put out there for you. All right, next question. How to get out of a deficit. All right, so how do you get out of a calorie deficit without gaining all of the weight back? The first thing I want you to know is you are going to gain weight. And here is the thing. There is a difference between weight gain and fat gain. As soon as you start to eat more food out of a deficit, your muscle glycogen stores are going to refill, which is a really good thing, right? That's not a bad thing. That's not fluid retention or anything like that. That is good. So that's going to happen. Plus, you've got more food in your belly. So you're going to see that number on the scale increase. Very normal. I would suggest if you don't like seeing that number on the scale increase, get rid of your scales and track your progress through body measurements and progress pictures. Now, the next thing to know is that you can jump straight from your calorie deficit up to your new maintenance calories. Now, keep in mind that your maintenance calories are going to be lower than what they were prior because now you're a lighter human being. You're a smaller human. Therefore, your body is now no longer requiring as many calories as it once did, right? To maintain what your old weight was. And so that's going to mean jump up to and what I do with my girls, that really does depend on how many calories, how much weight you lost in the first place. But I would always say shave off at like 200 calories from what your maintenance was prior, jump straight back up to that. From there, this is where you can do a bit of a reverse diet. This is where you can look at how far you can then increase your maintenance calories to then be able to maintain your new physique eating more. Now, what the biggest mistake I see girls make is they go into a deficit and they go, oh, okay, I want to get out of this deficit and I'm going to slowly increase my calories. And some girls will increase by 50 calories a week or 100 calories a week. But in fact, that's really not the best way to go about it because you're just prolonging that calorie deficit and you're actually prolonging you're potentially that metabolic adaptation process is still going to occur. So the slowing down of your metabolism, right? The longer you stay at lower calories, the more efficient your metabolism is going to be. Therefore, what could happen is that you're kind of doing more damage by slowing the process. So jump straight back up to your new maintenance calories. And then from there, you can work on increasing those slowly. And that's where you would use that approach. Okay, next question. All right, so how do you maintain your weight without counting calories and still hitting protein? All right, so I'm a really prime example of this. I don't count my calories at all, ever. And I've been able to maintain my weight for years. And that just comes down to that knowledge, right? So if you've spent a good amount of time, you've worked with a coach and you understand nutrition, you understand how much protein is roughly in a piece of chicken breast, and you should be able to eyeball it and have a look. You've got your main protein sources. You know how to build a meal from that. There is no need, once you've got that education, once you've understood that, once you've spent some time calorie counting, there's no need to count everything. You've got that knowledge. You've done it repetitively day after day for, let's just say, 3 months. That knowledge is in your brain now. And so you know how to then build a meal. I really feel like this question comes down to a lot of fear, and sort of touching on my original question that we had, the original question that we had around, it was really similar to this. I find girls are scared more so of the lack of control when it comes to tracking, rather than them actually being concerned that they don't know how to put a meal together. Okay. So next question. Oh, how to deal with a family member that is in a diet culture mindset. This is hard. I actually find that a lot of older women, so like maybe your aunties or your mums, are still in this mindset of like fat is bad, or not liking the way that they look, or having to go on another diet. And that just comes down to a lack of education, unfortunately. And probably like over the past, there's been a lot of over the past sort of in the 80s and 90s, there's a lot of focus on a lot of fat diets. And now they're getting cooled out quite a bit. And so us are kind of more aware. And also we're aware that like of what is problematic conversations. We don't want to talk about people's bodies. We don't want to talk bad about our own bodies. And it can be really triggering when you hear someone else talk about their body, especially when you look at them and you go, do you know what? You're skinnier than me, or you're smaller than me, and you think you need to lose weight. You see that as a reflection of yourself, and you're like, well, they're smaller than me, then that means that I need to lose weight. And this is a massive mistake I see girls make, is that comparison piece. What I want you to know is that, first of all, everyone's completely different, right? Our bone structure is different. Our genetics are different. Some people sit at a higher weight, very healthy. Some people sit at a lower weight and they can still be healthy. That's going to be an individual thing for each person. However, what you need to do, and if you can, limit interactions with people that talk negatively about their body quite consistently. That would be my first piece of advice, because you need to protect your own peace and your own mental health. I understand that sometimes that's hard, especially if that's a family member. If they are someone that is receptive to feedback, I would potentially suggest to them to maybe like, hey, can you not make comments about the new diet that you're doing or wanting to lose weight? Because I'm finding it really difficult. And, it's not really your fault, but I'm internalizing this as my problem. And hopefully they're receptive. If they're not receptive, that can be really difficult. And what I want you to remind yourself of is that all that they're saying is a reflection of how they feel about themselves. It has nothing to do with you. And you need to disconnect that. Instead of their comments being you feeling like it's a reflection of you and what you need to do, you need to remind yourself that that's their choice. And ultimately, they can choose to go on a diet if they want to. They can choose to speak negatively about their body. That actually has nothing to do with you. That's within your control, how you perceive that. And I know that can be really difficult, but you need to remind yourself of that. And there will be people that will have opinions on all sorts of things. And we can take all of that as a reflection on us, but we can't, right? We are all individuals and we all live our own life, and we can all make our own choices. And someone else's choice doesn't mean that needs to be your choice. And it's certainly not a reflection of you and you having to take on whatever decision they're deciding to make for their own life. That is a tricky one. And it is really hard, especially if you can't limit those people in your life. All right. I reckon I might leave it there, guys. I hope that was a helpful podcast episode. If it was, please let me know. If you haven't already, please leave a rating and review for the podcast. I'd really appreciate that. I appreciate all of you guys. And until next time, big love, Coach Tash.